There's something most people get completely wrong about attraction. They think it's about what you say, the right opener, the perfect joke, the clever line at the right moment, and when that doesn't work, they go looking for techniques, strategies that promise to make them more appealing without changing anything real about themselves. But here's the thing, the behaviors that actually make people more attractive to others aren't techniques. They're patterns. Consistent, observable ways of showing up in interactions that trigger something in the people around you, something that doesn't require manipulation, performance, or any kind of calculated move. This video is about those patterns, 7 of them specifically, and the reason they work isn't mysterious. Psychology has been studying human attraction for decades, and what it keeps finding over and over again is that what draws people to each other has far less to do with appearance or status than with how someone makes them feel in a conversation and what that behavior signals about who they are. So let's start from the beginning. The first behavior is something that sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but most people underestimate how rarely they actually do it. Mirroring, not copying, not mimicking, mirroring. There's a difference. Copying someone is mechanical, it's noticeable, it feels strange, and it tends to come across as either mocking or desperate. Mirroring is something else entirely. It's the natural, subtle tendency to align your pace, your tone, and your energy with the person in front of you. It's what happens when two people are genuinely in sync. Research on nonverbal behavior consistently shows that this kind of subtle behavioral alignment, matching someone's tempo in speech, adjusting your posture in a way that reflects theirs, responding to their humor with matching energy, signals empathy, not agreement, not submission, empathy. And that signal gets processed almost immediately, often without the other person being consciously aware of it. What people feel is something like, "This person is on the same wavelength as me." And that feeling is deeply attractive. What tends to go wrong here is overreach. Someone learns about mirroring, tries to apply it deliberately, and goes too far, copying body movements too precisely, matching every single thing the other person says. That's when it tips from natural to unsettling. The version that works is effortless, ambient, and driven by genuine attention, which leads directly to the second behavior, genuine, active listening. There's a reason people talk about active listening constantly and somehow still get it wrong constantly. That's because it's not a technique. It's a level of attention that most people don't sustain for more than about 30 seconds before their mind starts composing a response, preparing the next point, or wondering whether they're being perceived well. What genuine active listening looks like in practice is fairly specific. You're not waiting for your turn. You're not watching for a moment to insert your own story. You're tracking what's being said closely enough to ask a follow-up question that couldn't have been prepared in advance. One that only makes sense because you were actually listening. When someone experiences this from you, something shifts. They feel noticed, not evaluated, not assessed, genuinely noticed. And the brain registers that as safety, as warmth, as something worth moving toward. Research on interpersonal attraction at the neural level has shown that the experience of being understood, of having your emotional state accurately perceived, activates the brain's reward system in the observer. Attraction, in that moment, isn't a decision. It's a neurological response. Here's what blocks this for most people. They're too inside their own heads during conversations. They're monitoring how they're coming across. They're managing impressions, and that self-focus, however invisible it feels from the inside, tends to be perceptible from the outside, not as a specific behavior people can name, but as a vague sense that the person isn't fully there. The fix isn't to try harder. The fix is to redirect focus outward, toward the other person with genuine curiosity. That redirection, when it happens, is noticeable. And it's attractive. Attention is rare, and rarity creates value. The third behavior is one that people often misread as a personality trait rather than something observable and learnable: postural openness. A set of field studies published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that postural expansiveness, expanding the body in physical space, taking up space in a way that signals openness rather than contraction, nearly doubled a person's odds of a positive response in speed dating contexts. That's not a small effect. And what's interesting is that it wasn't dominance alone that was driving it. The combination of dominance and openness was what mattered. Closed postures, arms crossed, shoulders inward, taking as little physical space as possible, signal something the nervous system of the person across from you picks up as either defensiveness or low confidence. Not because they're analyzing you, but because non-verbal signals are processed before conscious thought catches up. What open posture looks like isn't complicated. Shoulders back, not tense, relaxed, taking the space you're in rather than shrinking from it. Facing the person you're talking to with your full body, not at an angle. Keeping your arms uncrossed. None of this is performance. It's alignment between how you feel and how you carry yourself. And when they're aligned, when you're genuinely comfortable in a space and your body reflects that, the effect on others is immediate. The fourth behavior is where a lot of people run into unexpected resistance, showing calibrated vulnerability. The instinct for many people in social or romantic contexts is to minimize weakness, project strength, keep things light, don't show the cracks. And on the surface that seems reasonable. Nobody wants to appear unstable or needy. But there's a distinction between strategically managed presentation and authentic presence. Research consistently shows that people who never show any vulnerability are perceived as either guarded, untrustworthy, or simply hard to connect with. Because connection requires something to connect to, and a perfectly polished surface gives nothing to hold on to. Calibrated vulnerability means something specific. It doesn't mean oversharing in early interactions. It doesn't mean using emotional disclosure as a way to create premature intimacy. What it means is being willing to acknowledge a mistake honestly, admit uncertainty when you're uncertain, and show that you're human, without dramatizing it. When someone does this well, the people around them relax, because the implicit message is, I'm not performing here, you don't have to either. And that permission, that mutual release from performance, is the foundation of genuine connection, which is the foundation of lasting attraction. If this is resonating with you, that's worth noticing. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this, and let me know in the comments what stood out to you. The fifth behavior is one that gets dismissed far too often as soft or secondary: specific, genuine complimenting. Not flattery, not generic praise, not "you're great at everything." A specific observation stated honestly about something real. Research from the National Institute of Physiological Sciences found that receiving a genuine compliment activates the same neural reward pathways as receiving money. That's not a metaphor. It's a measurable neurological response. And the key variable in that response isn't the compliment itself, it's the genuineness of it. People can tell the difference between a compliment designed to get something and a compliment that's simply offered because it's true. The former creates suspicion. It reads as a tactic. The latter creates warmth and reciprocal positive regard, almost instantly. What makes a compliment specific is that it couldn't have been said to just anyone. "You're smart" is generic. The way you explained that made something I've been confused about for months actually make sense, is specific. It tells the person that you were paying attention, which loops back to genuine listening, and that you notice something about them in particular. The observable signal here, the one that increases attractiveness, is that you're someone who notices, who pays enough attention to see something worth saying. That quality, attentiveness without agenda, is rare, and scarcity, as any behavioral economist will tell you, drives value. The sixth behavior is about how you handle emotional dissonance in social contexts. There's a pattern that plays out in almost every social environment. The room has a certain energy level, and most people match it or try to exceed it. The logic is intuitive. Blend in, keep pace, don't seem out of step. But research on social magnetism suggests something counterintuitive. People who slightly undermatch the energy of a room, who are calm when others are anxious, steady when others are reactive, grounded when others are performing, tend to become points of gravity. Others circulate toward them, not away from them. This isn't about being detached or cold. It's the difference between being swept along by the emotional current of a situation and having your own center of gravity. When you're genuinely regulated, not performing calm, but actually grounded, the nervous system of the people around you can detect it. And what they experience is something like, "I feel more steady when I'm near this person." That's a powerful pull. Not because you've done anything clever, because you've demonstrated something rare. You don't need the room's approval to feel okay. And that independence, visible through behavior, not announced through words, is deeply, consistently attractive across contexts. The observable signs of this in someone else. They're not scanning the room for social feedback. They don't shift their posture or energy dramatically based on who just walked in. They're present in the interaction without being anxious about it. They can sit in silence without rushing to fill it. If you notice this absence of nervous energy in someone, that steady, unhurried quality, what you're observing is a nervous system that isn't in constant threat detection mode. And that's something humans are wired to find reassuring and to move toward. The seventh behavior might be the most important and also the most frequently misunderstood: authenticity without announcement. Authenticity is one of those words that has been used so often in personal development spaces that it's started to lose its meaning. People talk about being authentic as if it's something you can decide to do, a setting you can switch on. But in behavioral terms, authenticity isn't a declaration, it's a consistency. It's the observable alignment between what you say, how you say it, how you carry yourself, and what you actually seem to value when the stakes are low. When those things are consistent, when the version of you that shows up in high-pressure moments isn't radically different from the version of you in relaxed ones, people experience that as trustworthy, as real, as something they want more exposure to. The opposite pattern is also observable. When someone's behavior shifts significantly based on who they're talking to, louder with people they want to impress, quieter with people they don't, when their positions change depending on the room, when their humor disappears when they're nervous, people pick up on that inconsistency. They can't always name it, but they feel it as a kind of instability, as something slightly off. Authenticity without announcement means you're not advertising your realness. You're not performing sincerity. The consistency is just there in how you engage, what you choose to say, what you choose not to say, and how you respond when you disagree with something. That consistency over time builds a very specific kind of reputation. What you see is what you get. And in a social environment full of performance, impression management, and curated presentation, that quality is magnetic. Now let's go a level deeper on these patterns, because recognizing them in theory is one thing, but the practical value comes from being able to spot them in yourself and adjust in real time. On mirroring, the most common error isn't overdoing it. It's doing it consciously at all. The moment you're thinking, "I should mirror this person right now," you've already broken the naturalness of it. The more useful focus is on simply being present. When you're genuinely engaged, mirroring happens on its own. Your attention is the input, mirroring is the output. On listening, there's a specific micro-behavior that distinguishes active listeners from people who are pretending to listen. They wait longer before responding, not awkwardly long, just long enough to indicate that they actually processed what was said, rather than firing back the first thing that came to mind. That brief pause signals comprehension, and comprehension signals genuine attention. On posture, One useful check is to notice where your body goes when you're in an unfamiliar or slightly high-stakes situation. Most people contract, they get smaller, pull inward, cross their arms. That contraction is a stress response. Consciously choosing to open your posture in those moments isn't performance. It's a physical signal to your own nervous system that you're safe, and it communicates the same thing externally. On vulnerability, the calibration here matters more than the disclosure itself. Early-stage interactions call for light vulnerability, a small admission, a moment of honest uncertainty. The mistake is deploying heavy emotional disclosure before there's a foundation of trust. That reads not as openness, but as instability, and it tends to push people away rather than draw them in. On complimenting, the practice worth developing is the habit of noticing, not necessarily saying everything you notice, but training your attention to catch specific praiseworthy things in the people around you. When something genuinely stands out, say it. That habit of noticing over time changes how you show up in conversations. You become the person who actually pays attention. That's a quality people remember. On emotional regulation, the places where this is hardest are exactly the places where it matters most. High-energy social environments, situations where status feels at stake, moments when you want to be perceived a certain way. In those moments, the pull is to perform, to turn your energy up to match or exceed what's around you. Choosing not to, choosing instead to stay grounded and let the conversation come to you, is one of the higher difficulty social skills. But its effects on how you're perceived are disproportionate to the effort. On authenticity, the simplest version of this is, don't position yourself. Don't pre-manage how someone is going to think of you. Engage with what's actually in front of you, rather than with the version of the interaction you're trying to construct. That shift from strategic to present is perceptible, and it's one of the clearest ways the 7 behaviors described in this video actually connect to each other. Because that's the thing worth noticing about all of this. These aren't 7 separate techniques to learn and deploy independently. They're different expressions of the same underlying orientation, being genuinely present, genuinely attentive, and genuinely yourself in the interactions you have. The reason people play games, use tactics, run strategies, calculate their moves, is usually because they don't believe that being genuinely present is enough, that showing up as they actually are will work, that paying attention without agenda will land. But the behavioral research is consistent. What makes people attractive at the level of actual human interaction isn't the technique, it's the signal beneath the technique. And the signal that registers as attractive, the one that drives the reward response, that creates the pull people feel, is the presence of someone who is regulated, attentive, consistent, and real. That's not a persona you build. It's the result of what you practice. And what you practice shows up in exactly the subtle behaviors we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. Not in how you look, not in what you have, but in how you make someone feel when they're standing next to you, and in what that quietly signals about who you are. If one of these 7 behaviors felt slightly uncomfortable to hear, that's probably the one worth paying attention to first. Let me know in the comments which one stood out to you. And if you want more conversations like this, not about tricks, but about how people actually work, subscribe.